Hi, and welcome back to episode 4 of Your American Story. This is a simple guide to U.S. citizenship. The most stressful part about the citizenship process for almost everyone is the interview and test. People lose sleep over it. They can't figure out, am I ready? Am I going to forget everything when I get there? But what if I told you that the system is actually set up to promote approvals? They are there to help you make it through to get approved. Today, let's pull back the curtain and walk through exactly what happens in the interview when you're sitting across from the USCIS officer. Hi, I'm Michael Hendricks. I am the king of citizenship. I have been in immigration for over 15 years, and we are welcoming you back to Your American Story, a simple and complete guide to U.S. citizenship. And this is provided to you by Hendricks Law and the Hendricks Citizenship Academy in order to help give you education. You know, there are many sources online where you can find where a person's going through the form. This is what you put here. This is what you put there. And that's fine. But they don't ever tell you about the nuances, what to expect. Sometimes they do mock interviews, but they're mock interviews. And so they don't tell you exactly what to expect, and they don't educate you on the reasons, the whys behind. They only give you the what. So in this system, in this education system, in this academy, we're looking to teach you the why for two reasons. If you choose to do it on your own, we do not advise it, but if you choose to do it on your own, understanding the why behind helps you be able to do a better job. And number two, if you do use an attorney, which we recommend, then knowing what the attorney is doing and being able to make sure that you understand the application and the whys behind in order to verify the work. Remember this, an attorney may be working on thousands of cases all at the same time. You will be working on one, yours. So who's going to put more attention to detail on that one application? The person whose attention is spread across 1,000 or the person's whose attention is focused on the one? And I think we all know the answer to that question. So first, let's talk about the vibe of the USCIS field office interview when you go and do it. It's a formal legal process. They're going to put you under oath. Everything that you say has to be the truth and only the truth. So help you God, right? You remain standing after you're on oath, and then they have you present your green card. It's very formal, right? There's no chit chat. There's very rarely any talk about your family or anything like that. Usually it goes directly in, and most of them are very nice. So it's not negative. It's not like formal as in cold, but it is formal as in they're putting you into a legal proceeding. A lot of times they ask you for your passport as well. The officer will then go through, usually this is how it works. Sometimes they'll say, do you want to do the exam first to get it out of the way, or do you want to go through your form first? And so sometimes they'll ask you, some officers, many officers won't. They'll just go directly into the N-400 form, going through every question. Remember, there are over 700 different questions and answers or iterations in that application. So making sure that every one of them is done correctly, they're verifying that the answers that you gave them are correct. And this is just a static thing. Is this where you live? Can you give me your address? Can you give me your age? Can you give me your wife's name? Stuff like that. And then as they process through the N-400, they'll verify your addresses. They'll also verify your employment, your travel, your marital history, and just to make sure that everything on the form matches what is actually true today. And this is your chance to amend the form. Sometimes people submit their application and then 5 months later they move to a different house. So updating the addresses, they'll actually do that on the form for you. They'll add a new current address so that they can put it into the system. Maybe you've gotten divorced. Maybe there's a lot of things that could have happened. You took trips in between your application and when you actually went to do your interview. The same is true after the interview and going to your oath ceremony. If you've taken trips in between, you have to let them know. about those trips. And really what they're looking at is not just the information. As they ask you these questions, if you're required to take this naturalization interview in English, if it has to be in English and you're not a native English speaker, then they're also verifying that you can speak conversational English, right? They're asking you the questions and you have to respond in English, and they have to be able to tell that you understood the question and that you responded. So here's something that we see sometimes. Have you ever been married more than once at the same time? Yes. No. Wait, let me ask you the question. Have you ever been married more than once at the same time? They look like they're deer in the headlight, right? No. The USCIS officer, that's a cue. That's a clue to that USCIS officer. You're not understanding. So making sure that there's an intelligible way to respond. You may have understood that and thought about it and your face is just blank. But for this interview, you need to make sure that you're a little more expressive so they can tell that you're understanding their questions. So they're going to make you converse with them throughout the application. And then after that, what they come to is the examination. So what they're looking for is obviously that you can read basic English. Remember, all of the words that they can make you read are on the USCIS Resource Center and the Hendricks Law Resource Center. So they're available to you. You can study those words, have people say them to you. You can read them, you can write them. The same is true of writing. The words they can have you write, for instance, in what month do we celebrate Independence Day? You would have to write the full sentence. We celebrate Independence Day in the month of July. You can't just say July, right? You can't just write July. You have to actually put it in a full sentence, and they're looking at that. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. We celebrate Independence Day in July, right? July, right? And it doesn't have to look exactly right, but any words that you write need to be written in English and not your native language. So for this, for instance, Spanish speakers, independence and independencia, they look very similar. So writing independencia instead of independence then can cause a red flag for the USCIS officer to say no. So that's the reading and writing. And then they make you read a specific thing. So they're making you read the same thing, the same question. You read it, then you write the answer. So that's the reading and writing. And then they go on into the actual test for your civics understanding. So the civics test, it's 128 questions. Actually, I have here that it's 100, but it's not anymore. It's 128 questions. And those 128 questions, they will ask 20 questions of the 128. They select them at random. Their system actually does this. It selects 20 of the questions at random. And then once you get 12 right, you're done. They don't go through the rest of them. But if you get under 12, then you won't be approved for the civics part of the naturalization interview. The good thing is that if you don't do that, if you don't pass that, then you're able to come back and do a second try. Usually that's 60 to 90 days later, they can set it up. If you don't get that re-interview sent to you, then you need to do an inquiry with USCIS or have your attorney do an inquiry with USCIS. Usually it's a 20 to 30 minute interview, and there are 4 possible outcomes. Approval on the spot. If you have a person, a USCIS officer with approval ability, in other words, he or she has the authorization to do approvals without a supervisor's review, then you can get approved on the spot if you've passed everything and there's no problems. The second one is you get a request for additional evidence, or an RFE, a request for evidence. So that usually is like, I didn't report something, or I needed to provide additional documentation for a criminal history or something like that. And they're like, okay, we need that. We don't believe you were lying. We believe that it was an innocent mistake, but we still need the documentation. And they could ask some other things. I had one guy that was married, got his green card through marriage, and then had to move to California away from his then wife to get a job. So she stayed here, he lived there, he came back every weekend. They talked and emailed all the time, but they weren't physically living together in the same house because of the job situation. So what did immigration want? They wanted proof because technically his address was in California. He had been there more than necessary to change residency based on state law. So they had to prove that they had a legitimate relationship, that even though they weren't living together physically because of job, then they had to prove that their relationship was still ongoing. So that ended up being a response of, I can't remember, it was 350, 400 pages, text messages that were highlighted, and emails and phone calls that were highlighted out of the records. So sometimes they do that, but that's unusual. But usually RFEs are asking for things that are a little more basic, things that you can get within the time period. They give you 89 days to respond to an RFE. The third is a retest, like we were talking about. If you failed, there's nothing that makes you ineligible except for usually it's the reading, writing, or conversational English, or not getting 12 of the 20 questions correct. Then they'll set you up for a re-interview 60 to 90 days. And finally, obviously, is the denial. There's something in your application that makes you ineligible to move forward at this time, or they thought you were lying or something, and they just deny you outright. You do have the opportunity to appeal a denial. It's dependent on what they're saying, right? There's some things that I tell clients is like, this is not an appealable case, right? I mean, technically you could file an appeal, but there's nothing that the appellate or the supervisor or anyone could give you as a remedy because the officer's right. You, for whatever reason, don't qualify. You didn't tell us about a DUI that you had, and you finished it up, but you forgot to tell us about it, and it's within the statutory period. So here's the secret inside the interview room. The number one reason applicants fail to show English proficiency is not the reading and writing test. It's not. Those are easy. You study the words, you write them out, you learn how to write them, you learn how to read them. The times that people fail more often than not is the conversational English during the review of the application, right? During the review of the form, the N400. There are words that we use in the applications and in old language that we don't use in English vernacular. For instance, the word bearing arms. We don't use that. Like we would say, yeah, I've got my arms right here, right? They're on my side. I haven't lost them. I'm bearing them. They're here. Their weight's here with me. But that's not what they mean. They're talking about taking on a gun or having a gun. There are other words like, let me think of some of the ones that I think that are more difficult for a non-native English speaker. The prostitution. That could be a different one that's difficult to understand. Victimization, a victim, or forcing a minor into doing something, taking somebody's religious freedom. There's all kinds of things that can really cause a problem for a non-native English speaker because they're not words that we use in our vernacular, in our everyday speech. So making sure that like persecution, genocide, totalitarian, those are hard words to speak and understand. So you need to make sure that you're studying the application as well. Have someone read it to you, each one of the yes and no questions, and there's a lot of them. So make sure that somebody's reading, make sure that you pick out words that maybe you don't know. Remember, you have anywhere between 5 and 12 months between application and interview, depending on your jurisdiction. So be prepared. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. So many people apply and then they push it off until they've got their interview set for 3 weeks to a month later, and then they start trying to prepare. That's not enough time. You need to prepare now. Make sure that you go over it. So if you have found this video helpful, please subscribe to the Hendricks Law YouTube channel right here. This is Michael Hendricks, King of Citizenship, YouTube channel for the Hendricks Citizenship Academy. Down below the video, you'll find links for our resource center, where we have a ton of resources related to citizenship and naturalization. Some of them link back to USCIS. Some of them link to other services and resources that we provide, like English for naturalization. The test and study items for getting prepared for your citizenship interview and process. Those are all there. There's also links here to the resource page and to the book that I have. Very short flip book that you can actually get on the website, so you don't have to download anything. I know some people don't like to download. So you're able to see that. You can flip through it. You can look at it anytime you want. It's a free resource. We have a book actually coming out. It's a 300-page book, but it's only on naturalization, a 300-page book on naturalization. And it's full. It's a full treatise, but it's more for legal operators like attorneys and so on that may need to have all of this information in one location in order to be able to better understand. So the link is here below. There's blog articles as well. Every week we put out a blog blog article related to citizenship. And then, of course, our other social media pages. We follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn. Follow us on Meta or Facebook. On TikTok, we have all of them, tens of thousands of followers, and we try to provide good information that's necessary, right? Not information that's frivolous. We try to provide necessary information for people to be able to make good decisions. Thank you for joining me on Your American Story, episode number 4, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.